Hey, hi, hello friends, and I'm back with a long-awaited video. Hi friends, and it is I, and would you look at that? I have makeup on, it's freshly applied. I don't have any mascara on because I ran out. My old one got really crusty, and then I bought a new one, and when I had gone to see my family, my sister stole it, and I just haven't had the chance to replace it because your girl's been busy. I'm going to give you a quick update with what's happening with me, and then I will talk about Chantal and a little bit towards the end about Life by Jen because I just want to hit on like one or two points there, okay? All right. Oh, and Amber too. I want to talk about three of the girls today, so it's a 3-in-1. Okay, first me. I've had a pretty weird week. Not this past week, but the week before that. Something like 20% of my company got laid off. So it's been rough. I'm not an entry-level person in my company, and it wasn't just entry-level people who were affected. It was like a wide range of people, but what that does mean is that because I'm not an entry-level person, some of the other jobs that were not technically within my scope ended up falling into my lap. And you know, when you are working in a company where you believe in what you're doing, it can become a challenge because yes, it's a job, it is employment, but I do actually like what I do quite a lot. And I have always been the kind of person who's enjoyed working. I just like being productive in my life. And so I don't like feeling like I'm failing at completing the things that I'm supposed to be completing. And part of that is just expectations I place on myself. Part of that is expectations that, you know, the company has for me. Either way, it's just been a little bit of a rough time recently at work. And so even though I wanted to make videos, like the amount of work that I have even now pending for me is too much. But this past weekend, partner made me put away my laptop. And he's like, nope, we're not answering emails this weekend. We're not writing things this weekend. We're not doing any technical work this weekend. Nothing. We're not doing anything. You're not making a trip to the office. You're going to sit your butt at home. And then when I wouldn't agree to do that, he booked us overnight trip. So that's kind of where I have been. Working myself into the grave because I've been working like 70 hours these past couple of weeks. And then this weekend I was just gone for a trip. And then I think that's pretty much all that's happening when it comes to my life. There's really not much more going on. I don't really do, like I said this to you guys before, I don't do anything in my life. I work and I'm sometimes on YouTube and I spend time with my friends, but my friends are like boring like I am. So we don't do anything there either. It's mostly just like people coming over for dinner and stuff like that. So that was like Friday for us. Anyway, that's what's going on my end. Let's talk about our girls, right? I'm going to start with Chantal because she is by far the one that I think most people come to my channel to see. Now, here's the thing with Chantal. She's going to Cuba, supposedly, right? I want to be hopeful that this trip to Cuba will go well, but I am not. And let me try and articulate why. All right. First thing is just her history of flaking out on trips. And when something goes from being from the realm of like fantasy and fun to actually becoming a reality, she tends to bail pretty fast. Anything that's even minorly inconvenient to her, she tends to just nope out of that situation. Now, I'll tell you this as someone who's gone on several trips. Now, I think I talk about my travels a lot. It's maybe the thing in my life that I enjoy the most. Well, it's like second most. Number one comes family, always. But the thing that I love to do with all of my spare time and money is just travel. So I've not been to Cuba because, fun fact, I am a triple threat, which is that I'm American, I'm Pakistani, and I am Canadian. But I don't actively have a passport for Canada or for Pakistan anymore. I just sort of don't renew those passports. And I can travel on my Canadian passport. Now, there's some confusion floating around in the general girl sphere that Chantal hasn't worked out the visa stuff. I think I saw Milk Tea comment on it, and I think I saw I don't know who else I saw comment on it, but I know I saw another video commenting on it. So here's what I'll tell you. Canadians don't need a visa for Canada. It's a visa given on arrival. We can just land and we're fine because we don't have that sort of contentious relationship that America has. Now, for me, it's a special case given that I hold 3 passports. It would definitely be much more of an issue, which is why I have just sort of not traveled there yet. But, you know, traveling to a place like Cuba is like when I went to Jamaica, okay? Jamaica's beautiful. If you guys haven't been, I highly recommend going to Jamaica. And not just like Montego Bay. I want you to go around the island, and I want you to go to the places where people don't generally go, where the cruise ships don't land, because those are the actual places. I know people talk about how like Kingston can be a little bit like dangerous, but we took good precautions. We were sensible with how we traveled. We stayed clear of, like any kind of, I guess, what could be considered like dangerous activities. Like we don't really go clubbing or anything like that anyway, but we didn't stay out very late, stuff like that. But we didn't have any sense of danger. Everybody was super friendly. We had an absolutely amazing time. And to this day, if I have to pick one place to go back to, that would be it. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to prepare, right? She's done some of the very, very basic things. Like she's like underwear, toothpaste, which I cannot believe those things are things she has to actually put on a list to remember, because most of us are just like, yeah, you need underwear and toothpaste. And like deodorant. But then there's other things that you should probably take with you that you might not consider. So Imodium is one of them. There is bug repellent is another one. These are tropical places. They're very hot. They've got a lot of beautiful vegetation and fruit. With that comes bugs. It's just a fact of life. Imodium is probably going to be for your upset stomach, because unless you want to have an experience like a close encounter with the medical professionals there in a country where you might not speak the language and or you might not be able to get to a medical professional there, it's always best to take a couple of like first aid things with you. So we always take Tylenol, Imodium. There's a thing for nausea that we always take that I don't remember the medication name for, and there's like a couple other things, right? And antibacterial stuff, right? Like so, like a cream. What I mean is, so if we get cuts and scrapes, we can take care of that. Now she doesn't necessarily have to do that. She's going to an all-inclusive resort, so everything should be taken care of. But that doesn't mean that it will. And I am concerned that what's going to end up happening is that because she hasn't planned any of these things, we're going to see one of 2 renditions of this happening. Is that one, she's going to get to the airport. She's going to realize this is very overwhelming. She's going to have to go through like TSA and all that, which by the way, TSA is like actually really difficult to get through. I don't know how much luggage Chantal is planning on taking with her. I personally, when I travel, just like to check everything that I have, right? And I keep one laptop bag with me, like with a singular change of clothes and all of my important documents. And the singular change of clothes has been a very recent thing, because when we went to Puerto Rico, I lost my entire bag. They lost my entire bag, and I didn't have anything for like a week while I was there. I literally had to go downstairs and buy like underclothes from a CVS, I think it was. Anyway, getting very sidetracked. So I think because this is a very difficult thing to do, traveling internationally is not easy. It's very fun and very rewarding, but it's not easy, right? There's logistical things, which by virtue of being Canadian, some of those are taken care of, but there's other things like knowing some common phrases in the language. I actually don't know what language they speak in Cuba, but I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people at the airport who are going to be well versed, but you can't always rely on that, right? Like I would have assumed that a city as big and as international as Beijing would have had a lot more English speakers. They didn't, because English is not a language. English speaking people aren't who they cater to mostly, and they don't care about learning English, which is perfectly understandable, right? But you can't go from this like Western, from this Eurocentric point of view that everyone is going to be able to accommodate you when it comes to language. So you should learn a couple of phrases before you go, right? You should figure out what would be the best plan of action when it comes to exchanging money. You should figure out, how like the systems there work. So say, for example, if you miss the shuttle, can you get another shuttle there? You should call the hotel to ask them what they do. You should make sure that you have the availability to take like a cab or a car. Like, for example, when I went to Beijing once more, they don't allow foreigners to drive there, and they don't have Uber. I think they have Didi. And it was a logistical hurdle for me to use DD while I was there because you need a Chinese bank account, which I obviously did not have. So figuring out how the international version of DD worked and how to get it to work with my phone, and then like getting like actually messaging, you know, my driver and asking them, hey, this is where I am, getting lost in the airport. All of those things are going to happen. And I think if Chantal can muddle her way all the way through that and actually land on the other side, if she can land in Cuba in one piece, and we'll talk about the actual plane in a minute, what we're going to find is that I think she's going to be overwhelmed. And if she hasn't noped out of it at that point, she's going to emotionally nope out of it when she gets to Cuba. By which I mean she's going to stay in her room, she's going to order room service, or she's going to, you know, go down to the restaurant, she's going to eat, and she's not going to do anything else. Now look, I have a weird complex about going to an all-inclusive resort. I've been to, I want to say maybe 2 in my entire life. Okay. And mostly they're because, you know, I was going one time because I was going with other people, one time because this was for my honeymoon. We'd gone to Hawaii and we'd stayed at the Hilton Hawaiian Village in Honolulu. And it was both a splurge and an unsatisfactory experience for me personally because of the way I like to travel. I like to take a car or take public transportation, and I like to explore places. I like to walk there by foot. I like to go to the places that a lot of tourists don't go to, respectfully, of course. And I want to see what the people who live there enjoy about the place, right? Because I can go to a resort anywhere. If I just wanted to sit in a fancy hotel, I could go to the nicest one near my house. Why would I pay all that money to go to a nice place? You know what I mean? But that's how I like to travel. I think that already Chantal is going to be in a coddled environment, but this is going to be a coddled environment filled with people in beautiful outfits, perhaps people taking a lot of pictures, and Chantal's very, very self-conscious. And I think that if all of that like difficulty of getting all the way to Cuba doesn't turn her off, then landing in Cuba, getting to her hotel and realizing, shit, I'm surrounded by people who are significantly healthier than I am. I'm not going to say more attractive because, you know, that's to each their own. And I feel like that's going to cause her to go into hermit mode. And because she can't exactly leave, she's going to stay in her hotel the whole time. And she's going to tell her viewers, well, I just want to come here to relax. I just want to get away from everything. When in reality, what she's doing is hiding from Cuba. Those are the 2 ways that I envision this going. Now, she could very well surprise me. You know, she got this bathing suit, which I thought looked very flattering on her, all things considered. She's gotten a couple of other outfits. You know, she has that wig, that bluey wig that she has, which I actually think looks lovely on her. I really like that wig. I think it suits her face shape. I think the color of it is very flattering. So I actually think if she wanted to go and she was willing to put in some effort, she would have a good time. But a lot of this is attitude dependent and a lot of this is practicality dependent, okay? Attitude is understanding there will be difficulty and then realizing you're going to have to persevere through it to get to the parts that are fun, right? Like, I don't have a beach body. Well, I mean, I have a beach body in that I have a body and I can take it to the beach. But what I mean is that I don't have the kind of body that you see on, like, posters, right? I am not, like, a skinny woman. I'm never going to be, and honestly, like, with no degree of, like, self-deprecation. There are some things that I think I can work towards, and there are some things that I can't. I will be healthy. I will be probably at least a little bit overweight my entire life. I'm probably going to have bad knees later on because I carried so much weight at one point in my life. I'm probably going to have loose skin, right? I already have some. Fun fact. I'm never going to look like a Instagram model, right? You're not going to catch me wearing a fit that would look good on Bella Hadid because that's just not the kind of body I have. And I'm both realistic and reasonable, I think, in my understanding of what I want out of life. I don't let it stop me from doing things, but it is a thing that I acknowledge and move on from. Chantal's not really willing to do any of that internal work, like come to terms with the reality of her own situation, right? Because that would mean understanding that all of the fucked up shit that she does actually has consequences. And until she does that, she can't really come to that understanding of this is what I can do, this is what I can't, and how can I make this fun for me? Okay? So she hasn't done any of that work, and I don't think that she's really going to be willing to push past any of that. And so her attitude, I really don't think, is in the place where she's going to get the most amount of enjoyment out of this. The second part of it is practicality. Okay? Look, there have been a lot of takes floating around the internet on the whole, should airlines make fat people buy 2 seats? I'm going to tell you something, and I think this might be a little bit of a hot take because I think I disagree with both Milk Tea and I think Pelpy also said this. I disagree with a lot of people on this because a lot of people were saying, well, I do see where she's coming from. I don't agree with the concept of having bigger seats for women who are obese, morbidly obese, and whatnot, having chairs specifically dedicated for people their size. And I'll tell you why. Okay, before people take out the pitchforks, just hear me out. An airlines is not like a bus, right? The bus's wheels are sitting on the ground, so a lot of the weight is supported by Earth, Mother Earth. And yes, it does cause a little bit extra fuel, you know, if you've got a heavier person than it does if you've got a lighter person. But it's a fairly negligible cost. When you are looking at an airline, right? Airlines already have, like, they've been struggling as it is, first of all. Second of all, you're flying through the air inside of a metal tube. So the metal tube has to support every gram of weight that's on there. That's why they tend to be such sticklers about like how much weight you can bring on the plane. It's from the point of view of we're going to have to fuel the plane enough so that we can fly this thing. And then secondarily, you know, is it going to be a safety hazard for the people carrying your bag? That's why they have overweight baggage, right? Like they tell you so that they can hire 2 people to lift your bag rather than just 1 person. And I don't think it's fair that if you make seats, for example, that are inclusive of people at all sizes, for example, and then you make all seats, say, 20% bigger. Now you've got 20% less seats that are going to be in there because they're not going to have a special section of seats reserved just for fat people, because then people are going to claim, and quite rightfully so, that, hey, you're discriminating against fat people. This doesn't seem fair that you've like singled us out and are like shoving us into the fat corner, right? Like that doesn't seem nice. They're going to do that to all of the seats that they have, right? Probably the ones in the economy. And you're going to all of a sudden have significantly less economy class tickets. And the price for every person else who's flying on that plane is going to go up. Is it fair that because I choose to eat more and that I would be more comfortable in a wider seat, that someone who didn't choose to have those same indulgences now all of a sudden has to pay a higher price? I really don't think so. I don't think that's fair. And this is coming from the point of view of someone who actually has flown a lot, where I've A, been uncomfortable, but B, I've had to fly because I need to go see my family. Okay? I have a lot of airline fees that I pay all of the time. I would rather be uncomfortable than see my family less. And as I get older, you know, I see them, honestly, just because of COVID, I haven't seen them a lot. But I've told you guys before, I have family in Pakistan. I've got family in, you know, UAE. I got family scattered, and I want to go see them. I want to be able to spend time with them, and I want to be able to make more than one trip. And placing that financial burden on the shoulders of people who not only don't have any other option, but didn't even make the decision to overeat, I don't think that's fair. And maybe I can see the point of view that Chantal is making, right? That it's not fair that all fat people should be subjected to having to book 2 tickets if they want to fly, because now they're paying twice the cost that anybody else is. And that's not very reasonable. It's just going to result in fat people not wanting to go anywhere. And that is a very understandable thing. But there are ways to mitigate it, right? You book using your traveler's reward, so that, you know, if you travel a significant amount, then maybe you can do like 2 seats and then every once in a while upgrade so that you're doing just like a business class seat. Maybe you can ask them if you can be upgraded to business class right at the counter. Maybe you can get a credit card that builds points for you on every other purchase, right? Or maybe you do none of those things. Maybe you get an aisle seat, because I've seen a lot of people do this. You get an aisle seat and you lift up the arm so that you are kind of facing outwards and you're not like uncomfortable and squeezed into that seat the whole time. Okay? But from my point of view, I really don't think it's fair to make everybody pay more to fly, because there are people who essentially have eaten themselves to the point of it being considered a disability. And that's the thing. I have been at my heaviest, right? When I was like the fattest I have been, right? I was obese. I was never in the morbidly obese category, but I was obese, okay? And I'm telling you that I was still able to fit into those seats. Yeah, it kind of hurt, especially because I told you guys I have like the, what's it called? Oh God, my brain is completely not working. But I have like the unusual fat accumulation in my leg. And because I have that, it's a little bit, my hips are wider than they should be. Like you would think based on my shoulders, based on my arms, based on my face, my hips are a little bit wider than you would expect, right? And unfortunately that it was a slightly uncomfortable in some seats. And I'm telling you that when I say this, I wasn't like 180. I wasn't 200. When at my heaviest, this is summer of 2019, I was 224. So if I can fit into that seat, most people, even if you are heavy, you're not like 400 pounds heavy, right? Chantal is an outlier case. To accommodate people of her size, of AmberLynn's size, they would have to make the seats 20%, 30% bigger. I don't think that that's fair. I'm sorry that it feels discriminatory, but at some point you have to take into consideration what you can practically do. And unfortunately, to do this, you would reduce the amount of people willing to buy a ticket by so much that I really don't think that it would make sense for the airlines to do. And I don't think that from a moral point of view, it's fair to subject people who don't have anything to do with your weight gain to the cost associated with your weight gain, if that makes any kind of sense. I hope I've been clear on that front. And honestly, that's, I think, one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, because I've seen a lot of people saying that, yeah, coming from someone else, this point could be better made, or I understand where Chantal's coming from, but she should still be practical. And I sympathize. I sympathize with her. I empathize with her even. But I don't agree. And I hope that I've laid out my reasonings kind of well. Last but not least, Chantal's been missing for at this point about 24-ish hours. And there is some speculation that she's at the trap. Now, there were a pair of checkered pants that apparently she'd left at Natter's house, and that she had somehow mysteriously found in her house and was wearing them, so that she'd been back once already. It wouldn't surprise me if you guys remember, she had made that video that she was eating, I want to say it was in Montreal, the same day that Natter had supposedly moved there, and it wouldn't surprise me if she was the one who took him, quite frankly, because that's just kind of Chantal's MO. And that's all I have to say, I think, on Chantal for now. Now, let me touch on Life by Jen really quick and on AmberLynn really quick. So I'll start with AmberLynn first. AmberLynn claims to have an FBI friend. I don't believe her. None of that makes any sense. It gives me the vibes of people on the internet who claim to know somebody and the person will be like, yeah, I'm an FBI agent. Because, that's a cool, mysterious, sexy thing. So people will just claim to do it because they can do some Googling and find somebody's Instagram account. And they're like, yeah, I'm totally part of the FBI. And because Amber has no, she is kind of gullible and she's easily taken in by these things. That's kind of how she got to the Optivia thing. And I find that Amber tends to be very lonely and she lets people not take advantage of her, but convince her of things that aren't necessarily true so that they can remain in her life. So it would not surprise me if somebody told her that they're an FBI agent and that she's just being taken in by them. So that's what I think on that. I think Amber's being taken for a ride. Life by Jen. Life by Jen's story is pretty serious right now. She was in the hospital for a pretty long period of time. She is currently unable to walk. I wish I could say that there was something she could do to improve her outlook, but at some point, unless something drastic happens, I don't think that she's going to change her outlook. I think we're watching a slow downward spiral, and it makes me really sad to say that. Because I don't think anybody really deserves that, despite the fact that Jen and Jean have multiple times said and did things that have made me very upset. I'm thinking particularly of the fact that they're both addicts who are not in recovery and are living with each other. That's from their personal point of view. I think that that's a bad decision. The other thing that they did was that they talked a lot about Western medicine and how terrible it is and all of that junk. And if you guys don't know this, I think I've said this multiple times. I'm one of 11 cousins, and there's 3 of the 11 of us. There's only 3 of us who didn't go to medical school or become doctors. The rest of my family are predominantly made of physicians. And the fact that they're sitting there talking about this, sorry, my phone keeps turning off. People who emphasize Western medicine, oftentimes I have found are people who are then using like Eastern mysticism to sort of promote like, oh, this is better for you. You know what I mean? I don't like that shit. I really don't like that shit. There's a lot of like Orientalist vibes to it in and of itself, because they're like, they have some mystical healing powers that we here in the West don't have, some magic that we don't possess, and that's why Western medicine is bad. And I hate it on both fronts, because one, I'm a scientist and I come from a family predominantly doctors, and two, and equally as importantly, is that there are a lot of cultural significance to like a lot of the mysticism that you see in like different Eastern cultures, right? They're not all the same. Like Indo-Pakistani beliefs and Sufism is not going to be the same as the beliefs that people from like mainland China have, for example. So they're very, very different. They're very like specific to the region, and a lot of them are tied in with both cultural and religious practices of those regions. And so to sort of boil it down into East knows better, they have magic, it makes me very highly uncomfortable. So she's come out of the hospital. She's not walking right now. And I, as much sympathy as I feel for her, I feel that maybe she would have gotten better if she'd actually taken this thing freaking seriously. Because guess what? 6 months in the hospital, that's what it was there for. And if she hasn't been able to get a hold of herself and turn her life around during that time, I'm not entirely sure if she's going to be able to do it in the next 6 months or the 6 months after that. These sorts of changes, these sorts of things have to come from within. Like my dad has said this to me multiple times. He's like, I can't, he said this to me at my heaviest. He's like, I can't lose the weight for you. And unfortunately, it's the same thing with her. No one can lose the weight for her. No one can get better for her. And she's not willing to do it for herself. So we are where we are. All right. That will be it from me. Patrons will be getting a react probably tomorrow. And then I'll see if I can get another video out this week. But I make no promises. I make no promises because I am bad at keeping them right now, and work is kicking my butt all up and down my house. So that will be it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I always appreciate you guys being here. I will see if I can buy a new mascara so my eyes don't look so weird. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys. As always, I love you. My patrons, I love you doubly. My $25 patrons, I love you triply. And as always, I'm Jasmine, the sequel, and I am not relatable. Peace.